Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Science Society. Tonight, we are drifting into the green twilight of the world's jungles, where every breath carries the weight of moisture and life presses against life in an endless, ancient dance. If you find these quiet explorations soothing, I invite you to like and subscribe so more sleepy minds can find their way here. But for now, all you need to do is settle in, let your muscles soften, and allow your thoughts to wander into the emerald shadows of the forest. Let's begin. Imagine standing at the edge of a jungle as morning light begins to filter through a ceiling of leaves so thick it transforms sunlight into something softer, greener, more diffuse. The air hangs heavy with humidity, wrapping around you like a warm, damp blanket. Every surface gleams with moisture. Droplets cling to enormous leaves, gathering weight until they fall with soft splashes to the layers below. The sounds of the jungle wash over you in waves. Somewhere high above, a howler monkey releases its booming call, a sound so deep and resonant it seems to travel through your chest rather than your ears. Birds you cannot see sing elaborate melodies from hidden perches. Insects hum and click and buzz in rhythms that blend into a constant, living background noise. And beneath it all, if you listen carefully, you can hear the faint dripping of water, the rustle of something moving through undergrowth, the creak of trees swaying in breezes that never quite reach the forest floor. This is the jungle, one of the most complex, most alive, most overwhelming environments on our planet. Jungles are not simply forests. They are vertical worlds, layered ecosystems where life exists in dimensions that stretch from deep underground to heights that rival 10-story buildings. They are places where competition for resources pushes species to develop the most extraordinary, the most specialized, the most unexpected adaptations. They are ecosystems so rich in biodiversity that a single tree can host more species of ants than exist in all of the British Isles, where a patch of ground the size of 2 football fields might contain more tree species than exist in all of North America. Jungles are biological treasure houses, climate regulators, medicine cabinets, and mysteries still revealing their secrets. Tonight, we will wander through these green cathedrals slowly, carefully, letting our minds drift from the canopy to the forest floor, from the hunters to the hunted, from the plants that tower over everything to the fungi that quietly recycle it all. We will explore how jungles work, how they shape the lives of creatures within them, and how they shape the very air we breathe thousands of miles away. So, breathe deeply. Relax your shoulders. Let the gentle rhythm of jungle rain become the backdrop to your thoughts as we step together into the green world. The jungle exists in layers, each one a distinct world with its own climate, its own light, its own community of residents. Understanding these layers is like understanding the floors of a vast, living building, where each level offers different opportunities, different challenges, and different ways of being alive. At the very top, rising above everything else, stands the emergent layer. These are the giants, the titans of the forest. Trees in this layer can reach heights of 150 feet or more, their crowns breaking through the main canopy to stand alone in full sunlight. Up here, conditions are harsh in ways that seem contradictory to the humid jungle below. The sun beats down with full intensity. Winds sweep across the exposed crowns, drying leaves and testing branches. Temperatures fluctuate more dramatically than anywhere else in the jungle. Yet, despite these challenges, the emergent trees thrive. Their trunks are often straight and branchless for much of their height, like enormous pillars reaching toward the sky. Only at their peaks do they spread their crowns, creating islands of green in an ocean of blue sky. These trees have evolved thick, waxy leaves to prevent excessive water loss. Their root systems, spread wide rather than deep in the thin jungle soil, anchor them against the winds that would otherwise topple them. The emergent layer belongs to specialists. Eagles and hawks hunt here, using the height to spot prey far below. Monkeys brave enough to climb this high find fruits unavailable to others, though they risk exposure to predators who patrol the open skies. Butterflies, including some of the largest species on Earth, float between these crowning giants, basking in the sunlight that never reaches the lower levels. This is a layer of extremes, where survival requires adaptations that balance the benefits of unfiltered sunlight against the costs of wind, heat, and exposure. Below the emergent trees lies the canopy, the true ceiling of the jungle world. This layer, typically found between 60 and 130 feet above the ground, is where the jungle truly lives. If you could walk through the canopy, you would find yourself in a world of incredible density. Branches interlock and overlap, creating pathways through the air. Vines drape between trees like organic bridges. Leaves pack together so tightly that they form an almost continuous surface, a green umbrella that captures perhaps 95% of the sunlight that reaches the forest. The canopy is alive with motion and sound. This is where most of the jungle's animals make their homes. Monkeys swing through branches with practiced ease, their prehensile tails gripping holds as securely as any hand. Sloths hang motionless from branches, their slow movements making them nearly invisible among the leaves. Birds of extraordinary variety flit between perches. Parrots with feathers of impossible colors. Toucans with beaks nearly as large as their bodies. Tiny hummingbirds that hover at flowers, their wings beating so fast they blur into invisibility. The canopy teems with insects. Ants march along branches in endless columns. Beetles with iridescent shells catch fragments of sunlight. Butterflies the size of dinner plates float between patches of light. Spiders weave webs between branches, some creating structures large enough to catch small birds. Most of the flowering and fruiting in the jungle happens in the canopy, where light is abundant. Trees here compete not just for sunlight, but for the attention of pollinators and seed dispersers. Flowers bloom in extravagant colors and shapes. Some open only at night, releasing powerful fragrances to attract bats. Others produce structures so specialized that only a single species of insect can pollinate them. The fruits that develop offer food to countless creatures, from tiny fruit bats to large primates. Seeds get scattered through the forest in the droppings of animals, continuing the cycle of life and ensuring that the next generation of trees finds its place in the green world. Beneath the canopy lies the understory, a layer that exists in permanent twilight. Here, between about 10 and 60 feet above the ground, light becomes a precious commodity. Only about 5% of the sunlight that strikes the canopy makes it through to this level. Plants that live here must be extraordinarily efficient at capturing and using what little light filters down. Leaves in the understory tend to be large and dark green, packed with chlorophyll to maximize photosynthesis from minimal light. Many plants have developed broad, flat leaves that can capture every photon that drifts their way. The understory is quieter than the canopy, more still. The dense vegetation above mutes sound and blocks wind. The air hangs motionless and heavy. Yet, despite the dimness, the understory supports a rich community. Jaguars prowl here, their spotted coats providing perfect camouflage in the dappled light. Snakes drape over branches or coil in hiding spots, waiting for unwary prey. Insects of countless varieties move through the shadows. Birds like antbirds and tinamous forage on the ground or in low vegetation, calling to each other with soft, haunting songs. Frogs, many of them brilliantly colored with toxins that make them deadly to touch, rest on leaves or hide in the spaces between buttress roots. Many of the plants in the understory are young trees, waiting for their chance to reach the canopy. When a large tree falls, creating a gap in the canopy, sunlight suddenly floods down to the understory. In these light gaps, young trees race upward, growing as fast as they can to claim the newly available space. The jungle is patient but also ruthlessly competitive. Every gap becomes a battlefield of growth, with dozens of trees competing for the same patch of sky. Finally, we reach the forest floor, the darkest of all the jungle's layers. Here, less than 2% of the sunlight that hits the canopy penetrates. In the permanent gloom, growing is nearly impossible for most plants. Instead, the forest floor specializes in a different kind of life. This is the domain of decomposition, where dead things return to the earth, and where the nutrients they contain become available again for the living. The floor of a jungle is not the thick carpet of fallen leaves you might find in a temperate forest. Instead, you find a thin scattering of debris over dark, often reddish soil. Leaves that fall from above disappear with astonishing speed. Fungi, bacteria, termites, beetles, and countless other decomposers attack the dead material, breaking it down with remarkable efficiency. What might take years to decompose in a cooler climate can vanish in weeks or even days in the hot, humid jungle. This rapid recycling is essential because jungle soils are often surprisingly poor in nutrients. Most of the jungle's nutrients exist not in the soil, but in the living tissues of plants and animals. When something dies, other organisms rush to claim those nutrients before they can be washed away by rain. Walking through a jungle at ground level is an experience of density and darkness. The air feels thick enough to touch. Roots snake across the ground, many of them belonging to trees dozens of feet away. Buttress roots, enormous flanges that spread from the bases of large trees, create walls taller than a person, dividing the floor into compartments and providing countless hiding places. Fungi sprout from rotting logs, their caps pushing up through the decay. Some glow faintly in the darkness, producing a ghostly bioluminescence. Insects patrol the leaf litter, searching for food or mates. Millipedes, as long as your forearm, curl slowly through the debris. Ants march in determined lines, carrying fragments of leaves or dead insects back to their colonies. The forest floor is home to some of the jungle's largest and most impressive creatures. Tapirs, pig-like mammals with short, flexible trunks, root through the undergrowth for fruits and leaves. Peccaries travel in groups, using their keen sense of smell to find food. In the jungles of Africa and Asia, forest elephants move through the gloom with surprising grace, using paths they have followed for generations. These giants play a crucial role in the jungle, creating clearings, distributing seeds, and shaping the forest through their movement and feeding. The layered structure of the jungle creates not one ecosystem, but many, stacked vertically and interconnected in ways both obvious and subtle. A tree in the emergent layer depends on fungi at its roots to help it gather nutrients. A bird in the canopy depends on insects that breed in pools of water trapped in plants in the understory. A jaguar on the forest floor depends on prey animals that feed on fruits produced high in the canopy. The jungle is not just a collection of species, but a network of relationships, a web of dependencies so complex that ecologists are still working to understand all of its connections. The biodiversity of jungles defies easy comprehension. The numbers, when you first encounter them, seem impossible, like someone made an error in the calculations. But they are real, and they tell a story about how life responds when conditions allow it to flourish without restraint. Jungles cover less than 6% of Earth's land surface, yet they contain somewhere between 50 and 80% of all terrestrial species. The exact number remains unknown because we simply have not cataloged all the life that exists in these forests. New species are discovered regularly, not just insects and plants, but also larger animals like mammals and reptiles. In some particularly well-studied areas, scientists have counted more than 400 different tree species in a single hectare, an area roughly the size of 2 football fields. By comparison, all of Europe north of the Alps contains only about 200 native tree species total. This extraordinary diversity appears in every group of organisms. A single bush in the Amazon might host more species of ants than the entire United Kingdom. A tree in Southeast Asia might support more species of beetles than exist in all of Greenland. Rivers in the Congo Basin contain more species of fish than all the rivers of Europe combined. These are just the species we can see and count. The true biodiversity of jungles extends into the microscopic world, where bacteria, fungi, and other organisms exist in numbers and varieties that boggle the imagination. Why are jungles so diverse? The answer lies in a combination of factors, each amplifying the others to create conditions where life can experiment, specialize, and divide into countless niches. First, jungles enjoy remarkable climatic stability. Unlike temperate regions, where seasons bring dramatic changes in temperature and day length, jungles near the equator experience relatively constant conditions year-round. Temperatures remain warm. Daylight hours stay roughly the same. Rain falls regularly. though it may be more abundant in some months than others. This stability means that organisms do not need to adapt to survive freezing winters or scorching summers. They can specialize, focusing their energy on competing with other species rather than surviving seasonal extremes. Second, jungles receive enormous amounts of energy from the sun. That energy, captured by plants through photosynthesis, forms the base of the entire food web. More energy means more plant growth, which means more food for herbivores, which means more food for predators, which means the ecosystem can support more species at every level. The warm, wet conditions also speed up biological processes. Metabolism runs faster in warm environments. Generation times shorten. Evolution can experiment more rapidly, testing new adaptations and strategies. Third, the three-dimensional structure of jungles creates an incredible variety of microhabitats. A single large tree might host dozens of whole, distinct environments. The bark provides shelter for insects and small vertebrates. Holes in the trunk become homes for birds, mammals, and reptiles. The branches in the canopy offer different conditions than branches in the understory. Epiphytes, plants that grow on other plants, create their own small worlds, trapping water and organic debris and forming miniature ecosystems complete with specialized insects, frogs, and other creatures. The vertical layering multiplies the available living space, allowing many more species to coexist than would be possible in a flat, two-dimensional environment. Finally, jungles have existed for an extraordinarily long time. The tropical forests of the Amazon, Congo, and Southeast Asia have persisted for millions of years, surviving periods of climate change that destroyed or transformed ecosystems elsewhere. This long history gives evolution time to work its magic, to gradually separate species into finer and finer niches, to develop complex relationships between organisms, to build ecosystems of staggering complexity. Many of the interactions we see in jungles, the highly specialized pollination systems, the intricate predator-prey relationships, the subtle chemical communication between plants, took millions of years to evolve. The diversity of jungles creates a world where almost every conceivable way of making a living has been tried. There are trees that grow quickly in light gaps, sacrificing strength for speed. There are trees that grow slowly in shade, investing in defenses rather than rapid growth. There are vines that climb other plants, using them as living ladders to reach the canopy without investing in thick trunks. There are epiphytes that grow on branches, gathering water and nutrients from rain and air rather than soil. There are parasites that tap into the vascular systems of other plants, stealing water and nutrients. There are carnivorous plants that supplement poor soil nutrients by trapping and digesting insects. Among animals, the diversity of lifestyles is equally astonishing. Some species specialize in eating just one kind of food. Leaf-cutter ants consume only the fungus they cultivate in their underground gardens, though they gather leaves from many tree species to feed that fungus. Some poison dart frogs eat only certain species of ants, obtaining the toxins for their skin from the chemicals in those ants. Toucans have beaks specialized for reaching and manipulating certain fruits. At the other extreme, some animals are generalists, eating whatever they can find. Pecaries consume fruits, roots, insects, and small animals. Many primates eat a varied diet of fruits, leaves, insects, and even small vertebrates. The interconnections between species create feedback loops that maintain diversity. When one species becomes too common, predators and parasites that specialize in that species also increase, keeping its population in check. This prevents any single species from dominating and crowding out others. The result is a kind of dynamic balance where populations rise and fall but diversity remains high. Ecologists call this negative frequency-dependent selection, but the underlying principle is simple. In the jungle, rarity is often an advantage. Being uncommon means that specialized predators and diseases have not evolved to exploit you efficiently. Yet, for all its abundance and diversity, the jungle operates on a kind of biological knife edge. The richness exists because every nutrient, every bit of energy gets used and reused with incredible efficiency. When a tree falls, opening a gap in the canopy, dozens of species race to exploit the new light. When an animal dies, scavengers appear within hours to claim the carcass. Even animal droppings do not last long before beetles and other decomposers break them down and distribute them through the soil. The jungle wastes nothing because it not afford to. In this world of endless competition, even the tiniest advantage matters. Life in the canopy requires a special set of abilities. Moving through the treetops means navigating a three-dimensional maze of branches, vines, and gaps, often at heights where a fall means death. The animals that make the canopy their home have developed remarkable adaptations for this aerial existence. Monkeys are perhaps the most iconic canopy dwellers, and different species have evolved different strategies for moving through the trees. Spider monkeys, found in Central and South American jungles, have extraordinarily long, thin limbs and a prehensile tail that functions like a fifth hand. The underside of the tail's tip is hairless and covered with sensitive skin, giving the monkey a precise grip. Spider monkeys can hang from their tails alone, leaving all four limbs free for feeding or manipulating objects. They move through the canopy in a style called brachiation, swinging hand over hand beneath branches with a grace that seems almost effortless. Their light build and long limbs create a pendulum effect that conserves energy as they swing. Howler monkeys, living in the same forests, take a different approach. Stockier and more deliberate than spider monkeys, howlers move carefully from branch to branch, testing each one before trusting it with their full weight. They spend much of their time feeding on leaves, a diet that provides less energy than fruit but is more consistently available year-round. To digest this tough, fibrous food, howler monkeys have evolved enlarged guts containing specialized bacteria. They also have an enlarged hyoid bone in their throat, which acts as a resonating chamber for their spectacular vocalizations. A howler monkey's call can travel more than 3 miles through the forest, allowing groups to space themselves out and avoid conflicts over territory. In the jungles of Asia and Africa, gibbons have perfected the art of brachiation. These apes, smaller than gorillas or chimpanzees but larger than most monkeys, are the fastest moving mammals in the treetops. A gibbon's arms are longer than its entire body, and its shoulder joints allow a full 360 degrees of rotation. This allows gibbons to swing through the canopy at speeds approaching 35 miles per hour, launching themselves across gaps of 30 feet or more. Their hands have become specialized for gripping, with long curved fingers and reduced thumbs. Watching a gibbon move through the forest is like watching flight without wings, a continuous flowing motion from tree to tree, branch to branch, with barely a pause. Sloths, distant relatives of anteaters and armadillos, have taken a completely different approach to canopy life. Instead of speed, they have chosen slowness. A sloth's metabolism operates at about half the rate you would expect for an animal its size. This low metabolic rate allows sloths to survive on a diet of leaves, which provide minimal nutrition. But it also means they move very, very slowly. A sloth might travel only 120 feet in an entire day. They spend up to 15 hours a day sleeping, hanging from branches with their curved claws, which lock into place requiring no effort to maintain their grip. This slowness serves as a form of camouflage. Predators often detect prey through movement, and a sloth moves so slowly it barely registers as a living thing. Their fur provides additional camouflage. It has a rough texture that collects algae, giving sloths a greenish tinge that helps them blend with the foliage. The fur also hosts an entire ecosystem of insects, including moths that live nowhere else. These moths lay their eggs in sloth droppings, and the larvae feed on the feces before emerging as adults and flying to find another sloth host. Once a week, sloths descend to the forest floor to defecate, climbing down from the safety of the canopy in what seems like a pointless risk. Scientists now believe this behavior benefits the moths that live in sloth fur, and the moths may provide nutrients to the algae, which the sloth then licks from its fur, creating a complex three-way relationship. Birds in the canopy show equally remarkable specializations. Toucans, with their enormous, colorful beaks, might seem awkwardly equipped for life in the trees. But the beak, despite its size, is remarkably light, constructed from a honeycomb of thin, bony struts and air pockets. The beak allows toucans to reach fruits on branches too thin to support their body weight. They pluck the fruit, toss it into the air with a flick of their beak, and catch it in their throat. The oversized beak also serves social functions, used in displays to attract mates and intimidate rivals. Parrots combine powerful beaks with impressive intelligence. Their beaks can crack nuts and seeds that would defeat most other birds, accessing nutrition locked away from other species. But parrots also use their beaks as a third limb, gripping branches as they climb through the canopy. Their zygodactyl feet, with 2 toes facing forward and 2 back, provide a secure grip on branches. Many parrot species are highly social, traveling in flocks and maintaining long-term pair bonds. They learn from each other, passing information about food sources and dangers through generations, creating something approaching culture. Hummingbirds, the smallest of all birds, have evolved to exploit the nectar produced by jungle flowers. Their wings beat up to 80 times per second, allowing them to hover motionless in front of flowers or fly backward, the only birds capable of sustained backward flight. Their metabolism runs so hot that they must feed constantly, consuming more than their body weight in nectar each day. At night, when they cannot feed, hummingbirds enter a state called torpor, lowering their body temperature and metabolic rate to conserve energy until morning. Many jungle flowers have evolved specifically to be pollinated by hummingbirds, producing tubular blooms that match the shape of hummingbird beaks and releasing nectar at times when hummingbirds are most active. Insects dominate the canopy in both numbers and diversity. Ants alone might account for a quarter of all animal biomass in some jungle canopies. Army ants, traveling in columns millions strong, sweep through the canopy like living tsunamis, overwhelming and consuming almost anything they encounter. Leafcutter ants climb from their underground colonies to the canopy, cut pieces from leaves with their sharp mandibles, and carry the fragments back home, where other ants chew the leaves into a pulp to feed their fungus gardens. Weaver ants construct nests from living leaves, pulling the edges together with silk produced by their larvae, which the adult ants hold in their mandibles and use like living tubes of glue. Butterflies drift through the canopy like living jewels. Some, like the morpho butterflies of South America, have wings that shimmer with iridescent blue created not by pigments, but by microscopic structures that manipulate light. The males patrol territories in the canopy, the flash of blue serving as both a signal to females and a warning to rivals. Other butterflies mimic unpalatable species, wearing the colors of toxic cousins to gain protection without paying the cost of producing the toxins themselves. Predators of all kinds hunt in the canopy. Snakes drape along branches, using their camouflage to become nearly invisible. The emerald tree boa, bright green with white markings, coils on a branch with its head hanging down, waiting for birds or mammals to pass within striking distance. Its heat-sensing pits detect the infrared radiation of warm-blooded prey, allowing it to hunt in complete darkness. Harpy eagles, among the most powerful raptors on the earth, patrol the canopy looking for monkeys and sloths. Their talons, as large as grizzly bear claws, can exert crushing force. They fly through the forest with surprising agility for such large birds, twisting between branches in pursuit of fleeing prey. The canopy is not just a place to live, but a world unto itself, a vast, three-dimensional habitat that stretches across the jungle and supports a bewildering array of life. It is a place of plenty, where sunlight creates abundance, but also a place of danger, where predators lurk and a single misstep means a fatal fall. The creatures that call it home have evolved some of the most impressive adaptations in nature, from the precise gymnastics of gibbons to the patient stillness of sloths, from the specialized beaks of toucans to the hovering flight of hummingbirds. Together, they create a community that exists above the ground, in the green light, in the realm of leaves and branches and endless, patient growth. In the shadows of the jungle, where dappled light creates a shifting mosaic of illumination and darkness, predators have evolved hunting strategies that blend patience, stealth, and explosive power. These hunters, from massive cats to tiny frogs, showcase the endless creativity of evolution in solving the problem of how to capture and kill prey without being detected. The jaguar, the apex predator of South American jungles, embodies the power and grace of a perfect hunter. Unlike lions or tigers that hunt in open spaces, jaguars have adapted to the dense, cluttered environment of the jungle. Their spotted coats, covered in rosettes of black markings on tawny fur, break up their outline in the dappled light of the understory. They move with absolute silence, their padded paws making no sound on the forest floor or on branches. For jaguars are excellent climbers despite their stocky build. A jaguar's hunting strategy relies on ambush. They spend hours lying motionless near trails used by prey animals, or they stalk silently through the undergrowth, freezing whenever their target looks up. When they strike, the attack is swift and conclusive. Jaguars have the strongest bite of any big cat relative to their size. Their jaws and teeth have evolved to pierce through the shells of turtles and caimans, and when they attack large mammals, they often kill with a bite directly to the skull, their canines piercing through bone to reach the brain. This differs from other big cats, which typically kill by suffocation, biting the throat and crushing the windpipe. Jaguars are also comfortable in water, another adaptation to jungle life. They swim across rivers and hunt along riverbanks, capturing fish, caimans, and capybaras. This versatility in hunting techniques and prey selection allows jaguars to survive in a variety of jungle habitats, from dense rainforest to swampy wetlands. Despite their power, jaguars face challenges in the modern world. Their populations have declined due to habitat loss and conflict with humans, and they now survive mainly in protected areas and remote jungles. Snakes in the jungle have evolved an astonishing variety of hunting techniques. Constrictors, like anacondas and boas, wrap their muscular bodies around prey, squeezing until the victim dies from cardiac arrest rather than suffocation, as was once believed. The snake senses the heartbeat of its prey and adjusts its coils accordingly, applying just enough pressure to stop the heart. Anacondas, the heaviest snakes in the world, spend much of their time in water where their bulk is supported and they can ambush animals coming to drink. Venomous snakes like the fer-de-lance and bushmaster have taken a different path. They inject cocktails of toxins through hollow or grooved fangs, then follow the wounded prey until the venom takes effect. These snakes often hunt from ambush, lying motionless beside trails for days, waiting for the vibrations of approaching prey. Their heat-sensing pits allow them to detect warm-blooded animals in complete darkness, effectively giving them infrared vision. The venom serves not just to kill, but to begin digestion, breaking down tissue before the snake even swallows its meal. Green tree pythons and emerald tree boas, despite living on different continents and being only distantly related, have evolved remarkably similar appearances and hunting strategies. This convergent evolution demonstrates how the jungle canopy selects for certain traits. Both snakes are bright green with white markings. Both spend their lives coiled on branches, and both have heat-sensing pits for detecting prey. They target birds and small mammals that move through the canopy, striking with precision and then coiling around their victim. Raptors bring aerial hunting to the jungle. The harpy eagle, powerful enough to carry off monkeys and sloths, combines size with agility. Its wings are relatively short and broad for an eagle, allowing it to maneuver between branches, and its tail is long and acts as a rudder. Harpy eagles hunt cooperatively in pairs, with one bird flushing prey from cover while the other waits to ambush. Their eyesight is extraordinarily sharp, allowing them to spot a sloth's subtle movement from hundreds of feet away. Smaller raptors, like the ornate hawk eagle, specialize in hunting birds, and smaller mammals in the understory and canopy. They navigate through cluttered environments with remarkable precision, their flexible tails allowing sharp turns between branches. Many jungle raptors have crests of feathers on their heads, which may help funnel sound to their ears, improving their hearing in the acoustically complex environment of the jungle. Among the most specialized predators in the jungle are the poison dart frogs, though they are predators in a different sense. These tiny amphibians, often no larger than a fingernail, hunt minute insects and mites on the forest floor and in the understory. What makes them remarkable is not their hunting prowess, but their toxicity. The bright colors, reds, yellows, oranges, and blues that make them so visually striking serve as warning signals to potential predators. Many contain toxins in their skin, powerful enough to kill animals much larger than themselves. The toxins come from the frog's diet. In the wild, they consume certain species of ants and mites that contain alkaloid compounds. The frogs sequester these toxins in their skin, concentrating them to levels that make the frogs deadly to touch. The golden poison frog, found in a small area of Colombian rainforest, is considered one of the most toxic animals on Earth. The amount of toxin in a single frog's skin could theoretically kill 10 adult humans or 20,000 mice. Indigenous people historically used the toxin to poison their blow darts, hence the frog's common name. In captivity, when deprived of their specialized diet, poison dart frogs lose their toxicity over time, proving that the toxins are acquired rather than synthesized. This represents a remarkable evolutionary strategy. Rather than spending energy producing defensive chemicals, the frogs obtain them from their prey and advertise their toxicity with brilliant colors, a phenomenon called aposematism. Predators learn, often through unpleasant experience, to associate bright colors with toxicity and avoid those frogs in the future. Other predators in the jungle use deception and camouflage rather than poison or strength. Praying mantises adopt the appearance of leaves or flowers, remaining motionless until prey comes within reach of their lightning-fast raptorial forelegs. Some species of mantis not only look like flowers, but also sway gently, as if moved by wind, enhancing the illusion. When an unsuspecting insect lands on what it believes to be a flower, the mantis strikes in a fraction of a second, its spined forelegs closing like a trap. Spiders in the jungle have evolved an incredible array of hunting strategies. Orb weavers construct geometric webs between plants. The silk strands so fine they are nearly invisible until they catch the light. The spider sits at the center of the web or hides nearby, detecting the vibrations of struggling prey through silk lines. Net-casting spiders take a more active approach, holding a small rectangular web between their front legs and casting it over passing insects like a net. Jumping spiders, with their large, forward-facing eyes and excellent vision, stalk prey like tiny cats, creeping closer before pouncing with remarkable accuracy. The jaguar's close relative, the ocelot, represents a smaller but no less effective predator. About twice the size of a domestic cat, ocelots hunt rodents, birds, and small mammals in the understory and on the forest floor. They are more arboreal than jaguars, spending significant time in trees. Their smaller size allows them to exploit prey that would be too small for a jaguar to bother with, demonstrating how different-sized predators can coexist in the same jungle by specializing in different prey. Even plants can be predators in the jungle, though they hunt in slow motion. Strangler figs begin life as epiphytes, germinating from seeds deposited in the canopy by birds or bats. The seedling sends roots down the trunk of its host tree toward the ground. As the fig grows, its roots thicken and multiply, eventually forming a lattice that completely surrounds the host tree. Meanwhile, the fig's crown grows in the canopy, competing with its host for light. Over decades or centuries, the host tree may die and rot away, leaving the hollow cylinder of the fig's interwoven roots standing as a tree in its own right. The fig has not truly eaten its host, but has used it as a scaffold and then replaced it. Predation in the jungle takes countless forms, from the overwhelming power of a jaguar's bite to the patient ambush of a snake, from the aerial agility of an eagle to the chemical warfare of a poison dart frog. Each predator has evolved to exploit particular prey in particular ways, and together they create the selective pressure that drives prey animals to develop their own remarkable adaptations. The endless arms race between hunter and hunted, between predator and prey, is one of the engines that powers the jungle's incredible diversity. While the canopy catches the sun and the understory bustles with life, the forest floor operates on a different principle entirely. Here, in the permanent twilight, the jungle's most fundamental process unfolds. Death becomes life. The accumulated debris of the living world, everything that falls or dies, gets broken down and recycled, its nutrients released to fuel new growth. This is the realm of decomposers, and they work with relentless efficiency. The first thing that strikes you about a jungle floor is how little debris accumulates. In a temperate forest, autumn leaves pile up in thick layers that persist for months or years. In a jungle, leaves begin breaking down almost as soon as they hit the ground. The hot, humid conditions create an ideal environment for decomposition. Bacteria and fungi go to work immediately, secreting enzymes that dissolve leaf tissue. Within days, a fallen leaf might be reduced to a skeleton of veins. Within weeks, even those veins disappear. Fungi are the master decomposers of the jungle floor. Their thread-like hyphae penetrate dead wood, leaf litter, and even soil, secreting enzymes that break down complex organic molecules. The fruiting bodies we recognize as mushrooms are just the visible tip of vast underground networks. Some of these mycelial networks can span acres, connecting trees and other plants in a kind of underground internet. Through these connections, trees can share nutrients and even send warning signals about pest attacks. Certain fungi specialize in decomposing different materials. Some focus on fresh leaves. Others tackle fallen branches and logs. Still others break down the most resistant materials, like lignin in wood, which few organisms can digest. Shelf fungi, those bracket-like growths that emerge from dead trees, might spend decades slowly digesting a single fallen trunk, gradually converting the wood into nutrients that other organisms can use. Termites are perhaps the most important decomposers of wood in tropical jungles. These social insects live in colonies that can number in the millions, often in enormous mounds that rise several feet above the forest floor. Termites chew wood into tiny pieces and partially digest it with the help of symbiotic microorganisms in their guts. These protozoans and bacteria break down cellulose, the tough material that gives wood its structure, into simpler sugars that the termites can absorb. The termites' waste products still contain nutrients, which soil microbes further process. Through this multi-step process, termites convert dead wood into materials that plants can take up through their roots. Some termite species have developed an even more sophisticated approach to wood digestion. They don't digest it at all, at least not directly. Instead, they cultivate fungus gardens in special chambers within their mounds. Workers gather wood, chew it into a pulp, and use it to build combs that the fungus colonizes. The fungus breaks down the wood more efficiently than the termites could alone. The termites then feed on the fungus, which provides better nutrition than the wood itself would. This farming behavior, which evolved independently from the agriculture practiced by leafcutter ants, represents one of the most complex behaviors found in insects. Beetles play crucial roles in decomposition. Carrion beetles and their larvae consume dead animals, often arriving within hours of death. They lay eggs in the carcass, and the larvae feed on the decaying tissue. What seems grotesque is actually essential. Without these scavengers, dead animals would rot more slowly, and nutrients would remain locked up for longer periods. Dung beetles perform a similar service with animal feces, rolling balls of dung away from where they were deposited, burying them, and either feeding on them directly or using them as food for their larvae. This activity not only removes waste but also distributes nutrients through the soil. Millipedes, despite their name meaning 1,000 feet, typically have only a few hundred legs. These gentle creatures shred leaf litter and rotting wood, producing waste that is further processed by smaller organisms. Their role is to break large pieces into smaller ones, increasing the surface area available for bacteria and fungi to colonize. Millipedes march slowly through the leaf litter in great numbers, their bodies undulating as waves of legs push them forward. Ants are everywhere on the jungle floor, and many species contribute to decomposition. Army ants, famous for their massive foraging raids, consume vast quantities of insects and other small animals. What they don't eat immediately, other organisms quickly claim. Some ant species cultivate gardens of fungus, like termites, though ants use fresh leaves rather than wood. These leafcutter ants create some of the most complex societies in the insect world, with distinct castes of workers specialized for different tasks: cutting leaves, carrying them home, processing the leaf pulp, tending the fungus, or defending the colony. Even earthworms, though less diverse in tropical jungles than in temperate soils, contribute to decomposition where they occur. They ingest soil and organic matter, digest what nutrients they can extract, and excrete the rest as castings that enrich the soil. Their burrowing also aerates the soil and creates channels for water and roots. Bacteria, invisible to the naked eye, might be the most important decomposers of all. They exist in numbers that defy comprehension. A single gram of jungle soil can contain several billion bacterial cells representing thousands of species. These microbes break down organic matters at the molecular level, releasing nitrogen, phosphorus, and other nutrients in forms that plants can absorb. Without bacteria, the cycle of nutrients would grind to a halt, and the jungle would bury itself in its own waste. The speed of decomposition in the jungles creates what ecologists call a closed nutrient cycle. Most nutrients exist in living tissue rather than in the soil. When something dies, decomposers quickly break it down and plants quickly reabsorb the released nutrients. This efficiency means that jungle soils, despite supporting the richest ecosystems on Earth, are often surprisingly infertile. If you clear a jungle and try to farm the exposed soil, the first harvest might be decent, but yields decline rapidly as the limited soil nutrients are depleted. This is why slash-and-burn agriculture, traditionally practiced by jungle peoples, involves clearing a plot, farming it for a few years, then moving on to allow the jungle to reclaim and restore the area. The forest floor is also where seeds germinate and seedlings begin their lives. Most seeds that fall in the jungle never germinate. They get eaten by animals, infected by fungi, or simply fail to find suitable conditions. But those that do sprout face a challenging journey. In the deep shade, they must grow slowly, allocating most of their energy to survival rather than rapid growth. A seedling might wait years or even decades for a gap to open in the canopy above it, a gap that will flood it with the light it needs to race toward the sky. Many jungle plants have evolved mechanisms to help their seeds germinate in the right place. Some produce seeds with hard coats that must pass through an animal's digestive system before they can germinate. The scarification and chemical treatment during digestion improve germination rates and ensure that seeds are deposited with a packet of fertilizer in a location away from the parent tree. Other plants produce fruits that attract specific animals, co-evolving with their dispersers over millions of years, until plant and animal depend on each other. The forest floor may be dark, but it is far from dead. It is the foundation upon which the entire jungle rests, the place where the great cycle of nutrients closes and begins again. Every leaf that falls, every animal that dies, every bit of wood that crashes down from above gets claimed by the patient workers of decay, broken apart, and released back into the living system. Without this constant recycling, without the invisible labor of bacteria and the tireless chewing of termites and the silent spreading of fungal threads, the jungle could not exist. The floor is not just the bottom of the jungle, but its beginning, the place where death transforms into life. Water shapes every aspect of jungle life. It falls from the sky in torrential downpours. It gathers in rivers that snake through the forest. It fills the tiny pools caught in the curves of leaves. It rises as vapor to form clouds that will rain down again. The water cycle in jungles is so powerful, so all-encompassing, that it influences weather patterns across entire continents and even affects the global climate. Jungles receive staggering amounts of rain, typically between 80 and 400 inches per year, though some locations receive even more. By comparison, most major cities receive 30 to 50 inches annually. The rain does not fall evenly throughout the year. Many jungles experience a wet season when rain falls almost daily, sometimes multiple times per day, and a dry season when rain becomes less frequent though rarely stops entirely. These seasonal rhythms profoundly affect jungle life. When rain falls on the jungle canopy, much of it never reaches the ground directly. Leaves intercept and hold water, which then evaporates back into the atmosphere or slowly drips from leaf to leaf, descending through the layers of the forest. This process, called canopy interception, can account for a significant portion of rainfall. The leaves, stems, and epiphytes in the canopy act like a sponge, temporarily holding water and releasing it gradually rather than allowing it to rush immediately to the ground. The water that does reach the forest floor follows complex paths. Some is absorbed by soil. Some runs across the surface in small streams that merge into larger ones. Some is taken up immediately by thirsty roots. Jungle trees have extensive, shallow root systems because most nutrients exist near the surface. These roots form dense mats that capture water and nutrients before they can leach away into deeper soil layers. Rivers in the jungle are ecosystems unto themselves. They range from small streams barely wide enough to jump across to mighty rivers like the Amazon, the Congo, and the Mekong. These waterways serve as highways for both nutrients and organisms. Fish, caimans, river dolphins, otters, and countless other creatures make their homes in jungle rivers. Many trees and plants have evolved to tolerate seasonal flooding, surviving months with their roots submerged. The Amazon River system offers a spectacular example of river biodiversity. It contains more fish species than the Atlantic Ocean, over 3,000 known species with new ones discovered regularly. These fish have evolved to exploit every possible niche in the river environment. Some are predators with massive teeth, like piranhas and payara. Others are peaceful herbivores that feed on fruits and seeds that fall into the water from overhanging trees. Still others are specialized bottom feeders or filter feeders or parasites. Many jungle fish have developed impressive adaptations to their aquatic environment. Electric fish generate electrical fields to navigate in murky water and detect prey. Some catfish can survive out of water for hours, crawling across mudflats on their fins. Lungfish can even breathe air, allowing them to survive when their pools dry up during the dry season by burrowing into mud and entering a dormant state until the rains return. Caimans, relatives of alligators, are the top predators in many jungle rivers. The black caiman, found in the Amazon basin, can grow to lengths of over 15 feet and is powerful enough to take down large prey, including capybaras, deer, and even jaguars that come to the river to drink. Despite their fearsome reputation, caimans are essential to river health. Their movements and activities create and maintain pools and channels. Their waste fertilizes the water. Even their old nests become habitat for other species. River dolphins, found in the Amazon and other large tropical river systems, represent one of the most unusual mammals in jungles. These freshwater dolphins have long, narrow beaks filled with sharp teeth for catching fish in murky water. They rely heavily on echolocation to navigate and hunt, producing clicks and whistles that bounce off objects and return to the dolphin, creating a sound map of their environment. River dolphins are more flexible than their ocean cousins, an adaptation to navigating around trees and obstacles in flooded forests. Their populations have declined dramatically due to human activity, and some species are critically endangered. Giant otters, also found in Amazonian rivers, are among the most charismatic animals in the jungle. These social creatures live in family groups and hunt cooperatively for fish. They are playful and vocal, using a complex array of sounds to communicate. Despite their charm, giant otters are formidable predators, capable of tackling fish almost as large as themselves. Flooded forests, called várzea in the Amazon and Igapo, when flooded by black water rivers, represent a unique habitat that exists seasonally. During the wet season, water levels can rise 30 feet or more, inundating vast areas of forest. Trees that grow in these areas must tolerate having their roots submerged for months. Some have evolved specialized roots called pneumatophores that stick up above the water and allow the tree to absorb oxygen even when flooded. Animals adapt to these seasonal floods in various ways. Some fish, like the arapaima, can breathe air using a modified swim bladder as a lung, allowing them to survive in oxygen-poor floodwater. These massive fish, which can grow over 10 feet long and weigh hundreds of pounds, surface regularly to gulp air. Others, like tambaqui, have powerful jaws for cracking seeds and nuts that fall from trees into the flooded forest. This relationship between fish and trees creates a fascinating mutualism. The fish feed on fruits and seeds, then swim away and defecate, dispersing the seeds to new locations. Epiphytes, plants that grow on other plants, have evolved remarkable ways to collect and store water. Bromeliads, relatives of pineapples, form rosettes of stiff leaves that overlap at their bases, creating watertight tanks. These miniature ponds, sometimes capable of holding several liters of water, become ecosystems in themselves. Mosquito larvae, tadpoles, aquatic insects, and other creatures complete their entire life cycles in these aerial pools. Some frog species raise their tadpoles exclusively in bromeliad tanks, the female carrying the tadpoles on her back and depositing them in individual tanks, then returning regularly to lay unfertilized eggs for the tadpoles to eat. The water that evaporates from jungle vegetation is as important as the water that falls as rain. Through a process called transpiration, plants release water vapor through tiny pores in their leaves. In a large jungle, the amount of water returned to the atmosphere through transpiration can equal or even exceed the amount that falls as rain. This creates a cycle where the jungle, in effect, creates its own rain. Water falls, gets absorbed by plants, evaporates back into the air, forms clouds, and falls again. This cycle means that jungles generate weather patterns that extend far beyond their borders, influencing rainfall hundreds or even thousands of miles away. The jungle's relationship with water extends underground as well. Jungle trees send roots deep into the soil, accessing groundwater and pumping it up to their leaves, where much of it evaporates. This hydraulic lift essentially moves water from deep in the soil to the surface, making it available to shallower rooted plants. The intricate network of roots, both living and dead, creates channels in the soil that allow water to infiltrate, rather than running off the surface. This helps recharge underground aquifers and maintains stream flow during dry periods. Rainfall in the jungle is not just water. It carries nutrients washed from leaves and dissolved from the atmosphere. In some jungles, a significant portion of the nitrogen that plants need comes not from the soil but from rainfall. The rain also washes dust and aerosols from the air, cleaning the atmosphere. When it reaches the ground, this nutrient-enriched water feeds the plants that then release more water, continuing the cycle. Water shapes the jungle's physical structure as well. The weight of rain has influenced the evolution of leaf shapes. Many jungle plants have drip tips, pointed ends on their leaves that help water run off quickly. Without these, leaves would stay wet, encouraging the growth of algae, mosses, and fungi that could block sunlight and interfere with photosynthesis. The drip tips, along with waxy leaf coatings, ensure that leaves shed water efficiently. In every sense, jungles are places of water. It fills the air. It runs in rivers. It hides in tanks held by plants. It sinks into soil and rises as vapor. The jungle breathes water, drinks water, is made of water. Understanding the jungle means understanding how water moves through it, how every living thing has adapted to either abundance or temporary scarcity, how the forest itself creates the conditions for its own survival. Water is not just part of the jungle. In many ways, water is the jungle. The jungle is a stage for some of the most remarkable adaptations in the natural world. Here, over millions of years, evolution has experimented endlessly, creating solutions to the challenges of survival that seem almost fantastical. These adaptations remind us that nature is simultaneously practical and beautiful, that survival and spectacle often go hand in hand. Poison dart frogs have already been mentioned, but they deserve deeper attention because they exemplify how defenses can become advertisements. Most animals that are toxic or dangerous try to hide, to avoid confrontation altogether. Poison dart frogs do the opposite. Their skin contains alkaloid toxins that can cause paralysis or death in predators, and rather than concealing this fact, they announce it with some of the most brilliant colors in nature. A strawberry poison dart frog is bright red with blue legs. A golden poison frog is exactly what its name suggests, a gleaming yellow gold that seems to glow. A blue poison dart frog appears in a color so saturated it hardly seems real. This is aposematism, warning coloration, and it works because predators learn. A bird that tries to eat a poison dart frog, if it survives, will remember the experience and associate those bright colors with illness. The bird will then avoid all frogs displaying similar colors. This creates evolutionary pressure for the frogs to be as conspicuous as possible, the exact opposite of most prey animals. Interestingly, not all poison dart frogs are equally toxic, and some are barely toxic at all, but they still display bright colors. They are cheaters, gaining protection by resembling truly dangerous species without paying the metabolic cost of producing toxins. Leafcutter ants demonstrate another form of extraordinary adaptation, one that involves agriculture. These ants do not eat the leaves they harvest. Instead, they chew the leaves into a pulp and use it to cultivate a specific species of fungus. The fungus grows on the leaf material, breaking it down and producing specialized structures that the ants eat. This is true farming, practiced by an insect with a brain smaller than a grain of sand. The complexity of leaf-cutter ant society rivals that of human civilizations in some ways. The colony contains multiple castes of workers, each specialized for different tasks. The largest workers, with massive heads and powerful jaws, serve as soldiers and defend the colony. Smaller workers cut leaves and carry them home, often traveling hundreds of yards from the nest. Even smaller workers ride on the leaf fragments being carried home, protecting the porter from parasitic flies. Inside the nest, the smallest workers tend the fungus gardens, planting new leaf material, removing debris, and weeding out competing fungi. The relationship between leafcutter ants and their fungus is so ancient and so intimate that neither can survive without the other. When a new queen leaves her home colony to start her own nest, she carries a small pellet of fungus in a special pocket in her mouth. This pellet seeds the fungus garden in her new nest. The fungus has lost the ability to reproduce sexually and can only be propagated through cuttings, making it entirely dependent on the ants. In return, it provides the ants with their sole food source, a relationship of total mutual dependence. Strangler figs employ a different strategy. These trees begin life as epiphytes in the canopy, germinating from seeds deposited in the bird or bat droppings. The young fig sends roots down the trunk of its host tree toward the ground. As it grows, it sends down more roots, which anastomose, fusing together and forming a lattice around the host. The fig also grows upward and outward in the canopy, competing with its host for light. Eventually, if the host tree is small enough, it may die, either from being outcompeted for light or from having its trunk constricted by the fig's roots. The fig then stands as a tree in its own right, sometimes a hollow cylinder of roots with no central trunk. While this might seem parasitic, strangler figs provide crucial services to the jungle. They produce fruits year-round, providing food for animals during seasons when other fruit is scarce. A single large fig tree can support dozens of animal species. Without figs, many jungle animals would struggle to survive through lean periods. Vines and lianas have evolved a different approach to reaching the canopy. Rather than building thick trunks like trees, they use other plants as support. This allows them to reach the light while investing most of their growth in length rather than girth. Some vines can extend hundreds of feet from their roots to their canopy leaves. They climb using various methods. Tendrils that coil around supports, adhesive pads that stick to bark, or simply by growing over and through other plants. The evolutionary advantage of being a vine is efficiency. A vine reaches the canopy much faster than a tree, giving it quicker access to light. But vines face challenges too. They depend entirely on their host for support. If the host tree falls, the vine falls with it. And because they invest so little in structural support, vines are vulnerable to disturbance. In areas where vines become too abundant, they can actually suppress tree regeneration, creating tangles that prevent seedlings from reaching the light. Orchids, the largest family of flowering plants with over 25,000 species, have evolved extraordinary pollination strategies. Many orchids are epiphytes, growing on tree branches where they compete for space and nutrients. To ensure successful reproduction, orchids have evolved highly specific relationships with their pollinators. Some orchids produce flowers that mimic female insects, attracting males that attempt to mate with the flower and inadvertently pick up pollen in the process. Others produce flowers shaped like complex labyrinths that only certain insects can navigate, ensuring that only those insects, which will visit other flowers of the same species, carry their pollen. Some orchids are pollinated by specific species of moths or bees that have tongue lengths matching the depth of the orchid's nectar spur. Charles Darwin famously predicted the existence of a moth with a tongue over 11 inches long, based on the structure of an orchid from Madagascar. The moth was discovered decades after Darwin's death, exactly as he had predicted, providing powerful evidence for coevolution between plants and pollinators. Camouflage in the jungle reaches extraordinary levels of sophistication. The leaf-tailed gecko of Madagascar has not only colors that match dead leaves, but also a body shape that mimics leaf edges, complete with notches and irregular margins. When pressed against tree bark, these geckos become virtually invisible. Stick insects take mimicry even further, not only looking like twigs but also moving with a characteristic swaying motion that mimics a twig moving in the breeze. Some species of katydid look exactly like leaves, complete with fake leaf veins and brown spots that resemble decay or disease. The glasswing butterfly has evolved nearly transparent wings. The tissue between the veins contains so few scales and has such low reflectivity that it is almost invisible. This allows the butterfly to become practically invisible while flying, making it difficult for predators to track. The effect is so convincing that photographing glasswing butterflies is notoriously difficult because they barely show up on film. Mimicry extends beyond appearance. The caterpillar of the hawk moth, when threatened, inflates its head and resembles a small snake, complete with false eyes. This defensive mimicry protects it from birds that fear snakes. The katydid mentioned earlier not only looks like a wasp, but also moves like one, jerking its body in the characteristic way that wasps move, and even positioning its legs to resemble a wasp's antenna. Some of the most impressive adaptations involve cooperation between species. Acacia trees in Central and South American jungles form relationships with ants. The tree provides hollow thorns as shelter and produces specialized food bodies, small nutritious structures that the ants harvest. In return, the ants attack anything that threatens the tree, including herbivorous insects, other plants trying to grow nearby, and even large herbivores like mammals. The ants are so aggressive in defending their host that they will swarm over and bite any animal that touches the tree. This mutualism benefits both partners. The tree gains protection, and the ants gain food and shelter. The adaptations found in jungles are not curiosities or oddities, but solutions to real problems. How do you avoid being eaten when you are brightly colored and move slowly? You make yourself toxic and advertise that toxicity. How do you reach the canopy without building a massive trunk? You climb on other plants. How do you ensure that the right pollinator visits your flower? You make your flower so specialized that only that pollinator can access it. Every strange shape, every unusual color, every complex behavior has been shaped by evolution to solve specific challenges. The jungle is a gallery of solutions, a library of strategies for survival, a testament to the creative power of natural selection operating over deep time. Plants are easy to overlook in the jungle, perhaps because they do not move, do not make sounds, and seem to simply exist as a green backdrop to the activities of animals. But plants are the foundation of the jungle, the source of all its energy, the architects of its structure. Without plants, there would be no jungle, no animals, no decomposers, no rain, no oxygen. Plants are not just inhabitants of the jungle. They are the jungle. The diversity of jungle plants is staggering. A single hectare might contain hundreds of tree species, dozens of shrub species, and countless species of herbs, epiphytes, and vines. This diversity exists partly because different plants have specialized to live in different conditions, in different parts of the forest, at different stages of forest succession. Understanding how jungle plants work means understanding how they have partitioned the available resources. Large canopy trees are the giants that dominate the jungle's structure. Some, like the kapok tree in Central and South America, grow to heights of over 200 feet. These giants have buttress roots that spread out from the base of the trunk, providing stability in the shallow jungle soil. The buttresses can stand 15 feet tall and spread 20 feet or more from the trunk. They create a distinctive architecture, dividing the space around the tree base into triangular compartments. Many canopy trees put most of their growth into height, producing relatively few branches until they reach the top. There, in full sunlight, they spread their crowns and produce the leaves that capture energy through photosynthesis. The wood of these trees is often relatively soft and light, prioritizing rapid growth over strength. They can grow several feet per year when conditions are favorable, racing to close gaps before competitors do. Canopy trees face the challenge of reproducing in a crowded environment. Their seeds need to travel far from the parent tree to avoid competition and find suitable germination sites. Many produce fruits that attract animals who eat them and disperse the seeds in their droppings. Others produce winged seeds that helicopter down from the canopy, potentially carried away from the parent by wind. Still others produce enormous crops of seeds all at once, in events called mast years, overwhelming seed predators through sheer abundance and ensuring that at least some seeds survive to germinate. The strangler figs, mentioned earlier in the context of adaptations, are among the most successful jungle trees. They dominate canopy space in many jungles and provide crucial resources for animals. Their growth strategy, starting in the canopy and growing down, gives them advantages over trees that must start at ground level and compete upward through dense vegetation. Palms represent a different growth form entirely. Unlike most trees, which add new wood each year and grow wider over time, palms grow almost entirely in height. Their trunks maintain roughly the same diameter throughout their lives. Palm leaves are enormous, sometimes 20 feet long, and arranged in a crown at the top of the trunk. When old leaves die, they fall away, leaving distinctive scars on the trunk. Many palm species have important relationships with animals. Their fruits are often rich in oils and nutrients, attracting mammals and birds that disperse the seeds. Epiphytes, plants that grow on other plants, represent a major component of jungle plant diversity. They are not parasites. They do not steal nutrients from their hosts. Instead, they use hosts merely as platforms to reach the light. Epiphytes gather nutrients from rain, from dust, from organic debris that collects around their roots. Bromeliads, already mentioned for their water-holding capabilities, can grow so abundantly on a single tree that their combined weight runs into the hundreds of pounds. Orchids, the most diverse family of epiphytic plants, show incredible variety in size, shape, and color. Some produce flowers smaller than pinheads. Others produce blooms the size of dinner plates. The vanilla orchid, source of vanilla flavoring, produces pods that contain thousands of tiny seeds. In the wild, vanilla orchids are pollinated by specific bees, making vanilla a rare and valuable commodity. Ferns also commonly grow as epiphytes in jungles. Some produce enormous fronds that drape from tree branches like living curtains. Bird's nest ferns, so called because their form resembles a nest, accumulate organic debris in their crown. As this material decomposes, it provides nutrients for the fern. The accumulated soil and debris also provides habitat for insects, worms, and other small creatures. Plants in the jungle have evolved sophisticated chemical defenses against herbivores. Many produce toxins that make their leaves unpalatable or poisonous. Tannins make leaves astringent and difficult to digest. Alkaloids can cause illness or death in animals that eat them. Some plants produce latex, a milky fluid that flows when the plant is damaged. This latex can be toxic, sticky, or simply bad tasting, deterring many herbivores. The chemical warfare is not one-sided. Some insects have evolved resistance to plant toxins, allowing them to feed on plants that are poisonous to other herbivores. In some cases, the insects sequester the plant toxins in their own bodies, using them for their own defense. The monarch butterfly, though not a jungle species, exemplifies this strategy. As caterpillars, monarchs feed on milkweed, which contains toxic cardiac glycosides. The caterpillars store these toxins, and they persist through metamorphosis into the adult butterfly, making monarchs poisonous to birds. In the jungle, similar relationships exist. Some caterpillars feed on plants containing alkaloids and use those compounds for their own protection. This creates a fascinating evolutionary dynamic. Plants evolve toxins to protect themselves. Insects evolve resistance to those toxins and use them for their own defense. Plants then evolve new toxins or higher concentrations of existing ones. The evolutionary arms race continues endlessly. Some plants take a different approach to herbivore defense by employing bodyguards. The acacia ant relationship mentioned earlier is one example. Another involves certain plants that produce nectar not in flowers but on leaves or stems. This extrafloral nectar attracts ants, wasps, and other aggressive insects that attack any herbivore attempting to feed on the plant. The plant pays a cost in producing the nectar but gains protection worth far more than that investment. Plants also compete with each other, though the competition unfolds in slow motion. In the canopy, competition for light drives trees to grow taller, even though the cost in terms of building and maintaining tall trunks is enormous. On the forest floor, shade-tolerant plants compete for the small amount of light that filters down. Some produce leaves that are so dark green they appear almost black, maximizing their ability to capture scarce photons. Allelopathy, the production of chemicals that inhibit the growth of other plants, is common in jungles. Some trees produce compounds that leach from their leaves or roots and inhibit seed germination or seedling growth nearby. This creates zones around the tree where competitors struggle to establish themselves, reducing competition for resources. The famous black walnut trees of North America are allelopathic, but similar strategies exist in tropical trees. The reproductive strategies of jungle plants show remarkable diversity. Some trees produce flowers that bloom for just one night, often releasing powerful fragrances to attract specific pollinators. Others produce flowers that last for weeks. Some species bloom simultaneously, all individuals in a population flowering at once in a spectacular display. This synchronous flowering may overwhelm seed predators or ensure that rare pollinators find flowers easily. Many jungle plants are cauliflorous, producing flowers and fruits directly on their trunks and branches rather than at the ends of twigs. This makes the flowers and fruits more accessible to bats, which are important pollinators and seed dispersers in many jungles. Cacao, the source of chocolate, produces pods directly from its trunk. These pods contain seeds surrounded by sweet, white pulp that attracts animals who eat the pulp and disperse the seeds. Plants shape the physical structure of the jungle, create the chemical environment, produce the oxygen that animals breathe, and provide the food that fuels the entire ecosystem. They are the primary producers, capturing the energy of sunlight and converting it into forms that other organisms can use. Without them, the jungle would not exist. Understanding plants means understanding how the jungle works at its most fundamental level. As the sun sets and darkness floods the jungle, the cast of characters changes. Many animals that were active during the day retire to sleeping sites, and a different community emerges. The nocturnal jungle is not simply the daytime jungle in darkness. It is a different world, with different sounds, different smells, different rhythms. The transition from day to night is one of the most dramatic events in the jungle, a changing of the guard that happens every evening. The sounds shift first. The calls of diurnal birds fade and are replaced by the chirping of crickets and katydids, the croaking of frogs, and the calls of nocturnal birds. In the Amazon, the scream of a potu, a bizarre bird that roosts motionless on broken branches during the day, echoes through the darkness. In Southeast Asia, the laughing calls of great Argus pheasants ring out. The soundscape becomes denser, more layered, as countless species announce their presence to potential mates or rivals. Bats are perhaps the most important nocturnal animals in many jungles. They exist in extraordinary diversity, with species specializing in every imaginable diet. Some bats hunt insects, using echolocation to detect and track flying prey. They emit high-frequency calls and listen for the echoes that bounce back, creating a sound map of their surroundings. Insectivorous bats can catch dozens of insects per hour, providing crucial pest control services that benefit the entire ecosystem. Other bats feed on fruit. These flying foxes and fruit bats have large eyes adapted for night vision and typically do not echolocate as precisely as insectivorous bats. They visit trees in the canopy, feeding on ripe fruits and dispersing seeds across wide areas. Some plant species depend entirely on bats for seed dispersal. The seeds pass through the bat's digestive system and are deposited in droppings that fertilize the seeds and help them germinate. A single bat can disperse hundreds of seeds in a night, playing a crucial role in forest regeneration. Nectar-feeding bats pollinate many jungle flowers, particularly those that bloom at night. These flowers often produce strong, musky fragrances that attract bats from considerable distances. The flowers tend to be large, sturdy, and pale-colored, making them visible in low light. As the bat hovers and feeds, it picks up pollen on its fur, then carries that pollen to the next flower it visits. Many economically important plants, including agaves, source of tequila, and wild bananas, depend on bat pollination. A few species of bat have evolved to eat meat. These carnivorous bats hunt small mammals, birds, lizards, and frogs, detecting their prey through a combination of echolocation and listening for the sounds the prey makes. The false vampire bat of Central and South America is large enough to capture and carry off adult rats. The vampire bats, 3 species found in Central and South America, have evolved perhaps the most specialized diet of any mammal. They feed exclusively on blood, using heat sensors on their noses to locate blood vessels close to the surface of their victim's skin. They make a small incision with razor-sharp teeth, then lap up the blood that flows from the wound. Their saliva contains an anticoagulant that keeps blood flowing. A single vampire bat might consume about 2 tablespoons of blood per feeding, not enough to seriously harm its victim, which is usually a large mammal like a cow or horse. Nocturnal primates, including night monkeys, tarsiers, and lorises, have evolved large eyes to gather as much light as possible. Night monkeys in South America are the only truly nocturnal monkeys in the world. They travel through the canopy in small family groups, feeding on fruits, leaves, and insects. Their large eyes give them excellent night vision, allowing them to judge distances when leaping between branches in near total darkness. Tarsiers, small primates found in Southeast Asia, have the largest eyes relative to body size of any mammal. Each eye is larger than the tarsier's brain. These eyes cannot move in their sockets. Instead, the tarsier rotates its head, which can turn nearly 180 degrees in either direction. Tarsiers are vertical clingers and leapers, grasping tree trunks with their long fingers and toes, then launching themselves across gaps to catch insects and small vertebrates. Lorises, also from Asia, move slowly and deliberately through the branches, hunting insects and small animals. Their large eyes provide excellent night vision, and they have a toxic bite, unusual among primates. The toxin comes from a gland in their elbow. The loris licks the gland, mixing the secretion with saliva, and then delivers it through a bite. This toxin can cause severe pain and allergic reactions in humans, and presumably deters predators. Nocturnal birds include nightjars, potus, owls, and frogmouths. These birds have large eyes, excellent hearing, and often cryptic plumage that camouflages them during the day. Nightjars hunt flying insects, catching them in midair with wide, gaping mouths. They fly silently, their feathers modified to reduce turbulence and noise. Owls hunt larger prey, including rodents, birds, and reptiles. Their asymmetrical ear openings allow them to pinpoint sounds with extraordinary accuracy, and their feathers permit silent flight, allowing them to approach prey without warning. Insects dominate the nocturnal jungle. Moths, in particular, exist in bewildering diversity. Many are cryptically colored to avoid predation during the day, but others display spectacular patterns and colors visible only to ultraviolet sensitive eyes. Some moths have evolved defenses against bat echolocation, producing ultrasonic clicks that jam the bat's sonar, or producing scales that absorb sound, making them harder to detect. Fireflies and other bioluminescent insects create living constellations in the jungle understory. These beetles produce light through chemical reactions in specialized organs, using the flashes to attract mates. Each species has a characteristic flash pattern, allowing males and females to find appropriate mates even in complete darkness. Some firefly species synchronize their flashing, entire trees lighting up in unison in one of nature's most spectacular displays. Fungi also glow in the dark. Bioluminescent mushrooms produce a soft, greenish glow from their caps or gills. The function of this luminescence is not entirely clear, but it may attract insects that help disperse fungal spores. Walking through a jungle at night and encountering glowing mushrooms growing from a rotting log creates an otherworldly experience, as if the jungle has revealed some of its magic. Frogs become particularly active at night. Their calls fill the air, creating a chorus that can be almost overwhelming in its volume and complexity. Each species has a characteristic call, allowing them to find mates of the appropriate species despite the darkness. Some frogs have calls that carry for hundreds of yards. Others produce sounds so high-pitched that humans can barely hear them. The chorus serves multiple functions: attracting mates, deterring rivals, and advertising a male's fitness. Females choose mates based partly on call quality, selecting males that can produce the loudest, longest, or most complex calls. Nocturnal snakes hunt by tracking heat and scent. Pit vipers have heat-sensing pits between their eyes and nostrils, allowing them to detect the infrared radiation of warm-blooded prey. Combined with their ability to track scent trails with their flickering tongues, this gives them a complete sensory picture of their environment, even in total darkness. They strike with precision at prey they have never seen visually, guided entirely by heat, and chemical cues. The nocturnal jungle is not quieter than the day jungle, just different. While diurnal bird calls fade, the sounds of insects, frogs, and nocturnal birds rise. The darkness creates opportunities for species that would be vulnerable during the day. Small mammals forage on the forest floor under cover of night. Predators that hunt by sound or smell rather than sight become active. The entire ecosystem continues without pause, demonstrating that the jungle never truly sleeps. It simply changes shifts, replacing one community with another in an endless rhythm that has continued for millions of years. The jungles of Earth do far more than exist as isolated pockets of biodiversity. They function as planetary life support systems, regulating climate, producing oxygen, storing carbon, and influencing weather patterns across continents. Understanding the global importance of jungles helps us appreciate why their preservation matters not just to the creatures that live within them, but to all life on Earth, including us. Jungles are often called the lungs of the Earth, and while this metaphor is not entirely accurate, it captures an important truth. Jungles produce enormous amounts of oxygen through photosynthesis. Their trees, plants, and algae capture carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and water from the soil, using energy from sunlight to convert these into glucose and oxygen. The oxygen is released back into the atmosphere, making jungles major contributors to the oxygen we breathe. However, jungles also consume oxygen through respiration. Trees, like all living things, use oxygen to break down glucose and release energy. Decomposition on the forest floor also consumes oxygen. When you balance oxygen production through photosynthesis against oxygen consumption through respiration and decomposition, mature jungles produce little net oxygen. They are roughly in balance, producing about as much oxygen as they consume. Where jungles truly matter for the global atmosphere is in carbon storage. Trees are made largely of carbon, captured from atmospheric carbon dioxide and incorporated into wood, leaves, and roots. A single large jungle tree might contain several tons of carbon. A hectare of jungle might store hundreds of tons. Globally, tropical forests store somewhere between 200 and 300 billion tons of carbon, a staggering amount that represents decades or centuries of carbon capture. As long as that carbon remains locked in wood, it is not in the atmosphere contributing to climate change. When jungles are cleared or burned, this stored carbon is released back into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide, contributing to global warming. Deforestation of tropical forests is responsible for approximately 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions, making it a major driver of climate change. Conversely, allowing cleared jungles to regrow or actively replanting them captures carbon from the atmosphere and helps mitigate climate change. Jungles also regulate temperature at both local and global scales. The trees provide shade, keeping the forest floor cooler than it would be under direct sun. They also cool the air through transpiration. When water evaporates from leaves, it absorbs heat from the surrounding air, just like sweating cools human skin. A large jungle can be several degrees cooler than nearby cleared land, creating its own microclimate. On a larger scale, Jungles influence global climate by affecting how solar radiation interacts with Earth's surface. Forests absorb more sunlight than cleared land, particularly compared to bare soil or crops. This affects how much heat is retained versus reflected back into space, influencing temperature patterns across regions. The moisture that jungles release through transpiration forms clouds, which reflect sunlight back into space and transport heat to different latitudes through weather systems. The Amazon rainforest, the largest remaining jungle on Earth, plays an especially critical role in global climate regulation. The water that evaporates from Amazonian trees travels eastward in the atmosphere, eventually falling as rain across eastern South America. Some estimates suggest that the Amazon generates about half of its own rainfall through this recycling process. Clearing the Amazon would not only release stored carbon, but could also disrupt rainfall patterns across a huge region, potentially turning parts of the forest into savanna and affecting agriculture and water supplies for millions of people. Jungles serve as the planet's largest repositories of terrestrial biodiversity. They contain more than half of all plant and animal species, despite covering less than 7% of Earth's land surface. This genetic diversity has enormous value, both intrinsic and practical. Many modern medicines are derived from jungle plants, including drugs for treating cancer, heart disease, and infectious diseases. Quinine, from the bark of the cinchona tree, was the first effective treatment for malaria. Curare, from jungle vines, was used as a muscle relaxant. The rosy periwinkle from Madagascar has provided treatments for childhood leukemia and Hodgkin's disease. Beyond medicines already discovered, jungles likely contain countless other compounds that could benefit humanity. Most jungle plants have never been scientifically studied, and we know almost nothing about their chemical properties. When we lose jungle species to extinction, we lose potential medicines, foods, and other resources that we have not yet discovered. Jungles also provide what ecologists call ecosystem services, benefits that flowing from natural ecosystems to human societies. Jungle rivers provide fresh water for millions of people. Jungles protect watersheds, their roots holding soil in place and preventing erosion. They filter water, removing pollutants and sediment. They moderate flooding by absorbing heavy rains. They provide food, fiber, building materials, and other resources to indigenous peoples and local communities. The indigenous peoples who live in jungles have accumulated detailed knowledge about their environments over thousands of years. They know which plants are edible, which have medicinal properties, which can be used for construction or tools. They understand animal behavior, seasonal patterns, and ecological relationships. This traditional knowledge is invaluable, yet it is disappearing as indigenous cultures are disrupted or destroyed. When an elder who knows the traditional uses of hundreds of plant species dies without passing that knowledge to the next generation, we lose a library of information that took centuries to accumulate. Jungles face unprecedented threats from human activity. Deforestation for agriculture, particularly cattle ranching, and soy cultivation in the Amazon and palm oil plantations in Southeast Asia, has cleared millions of acres. Logging removes valuable timber trees, often damaging surrounding forest in the process. Mining operations clear forest and pollute rivers with mercury and other toxins. Roads cut through previously inaccessible areas, opening them to further development. Climate change itself threatens jungles by altering rainfall patterns and increasing the frequency of droughts. The rate of jungle loss varies by region, but globally, we are losing jungle at a rate of millions of acres per year. Some countries, like Brazil and Indonesia, have made efforts to slow deforestation, with some success. Others continue to lose forest rapidly. The consequences extend far beyond the jungle borders. Loss of forest contributes to climate change, which affects everyone on the planet. Loss of biodiversity eliminates species before we even know they existed. Disruption of indigenous cultures erases knowledge and ways of life that have existed for millennia. Yet, there is reason for hope. Conservation efforts, both governmental and grassroots, are working to protect remaining jungles. Indigenous groups are asserting their rights to their ancestral lands and often serve as the most effective protectors of forests. Reforestation projects are planting millions of trees, though it will take decades or centuries for these planted forests to approach the complexity of old-growth jungle. International agreements, though imperfect, are increasing awareness and directing resources toward jungle protection. Individuals can contribute to jungle conservation through their choices. Reducing consumption of products linked to deforestation, like palm oil and beef from cleared rainforest, decreases demand for those products. Supporting organizations that protect jungles or work with indigenous groups helps fund conservation efforts. Simply learning about jungles and sharing that knowledge raises awareness and builds support for protection. The jungles are not separate from our lives. They are part of Earth's life support system, part of the intricate web of connections that makes this planet habitable. Their fate is intertwined with ours. Protecting them is not just about saving tigers or orchids or indigenous cultures, though those would be reason enough. It is about maintaining the ecological systems that regulate climate, produce oxygen, store carbon, and support the incredible diversity of life that makes Earth unique. In protecting the jungles, we protect ourselves. And now, as our journey through the jungle comes to a close, let yourself drift back from those green depths. Feel your body settling into comfort. Let your breath slow and deepen. The sounds of the jungle, the calls of howler monkeys and the buzz of insects, fade into the gentler sounds around you now. The heavy, humid air gives way to the air you breathe, clear and cool. You have wandered through layers of forest, from the sunlit emergent layer to the dark forest floor. You have met creatures, both familiar and strange, from jaguars padding silently through shadows to tiny frogs glowing with warning colors. You have seen how plants compete and cooperate, how water flows through the forest, how decomposers recycle death into life. You have learned how the jungle breathes and grows, how it shapes weather and climate, how it holds secrets we have barely begun to understand. The jungle is a place of overwhelming complexity and beauty, a reminder that Earth is still wild, still mysterious, still full of wonders waiting to be discovered. It is also fragile, vulnerable to destruction that happens in minutes, though it took millions of years to create. But within that fragility is resilience. Given time and protection, jungles can recover, can regrow, can reclaim land that was cleared. Life persists. It adapts. It endures. If you found this journey soothing and illuminating, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to the Sleepy Science Society so we can continue exploring the quiet wonders of the natural world together. Your support helps this channel grow and reach others who crave these peaceful moments of learning and reflection. For now, let the jungle fade into your dreams. Let your mind hold the image of green light filtering through leaves, of water dripping from branches, of life pressing against life in endless, patient competition and cooperation. Let it all become soft and distant, a memory of a journey taken, a place visited in thought. Rest well. The jungle will still be there, still growing, still breathing, still living its slow, magnificent life. And whenever you need to escape into wonder, you can return to these green places, to these living cathedrals where the ancient and the new intertwine. Good night.